Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, July 15th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Ball State game in 52 days, the game against Michigan in 136 days. We're sponsored today by Jeff Ruby's of Columbus, proudly offering nationally acclaimed USDA prime steaks, seafood and sushi, impeccable service, live entertainment, and an attention to detail that is simply unmatched. Just go to jeffruby.com/Columbus to check out the menu and make a reservation today. I'm going to add one number to that countdown pretty soon, and that is to Big Ten Media Days. That is just 13 days away. Just under 2 weeks. Cannot wait. We'll be in Chicago with Tony Gerdeman and Juck Miletti of BuckeyeInsiders.com. Just got our credential approvals this week. It is starting to get real. So, Juck, we're a couple weeks away from that. We're going to be talking about recruiting on today's show. But first of all, pretty exciting. All of a sudden, it feels like it sort of snuck up on us. But all of a sudden, boom, college football season is right about here.
It is. Media days is usually like that mark in the sand where, all right, when that comes, it's like, it's officially time. Here we go. We're rolling into camp soon. But first we get to hear from all around the Big Ten as we roll into a Big Ten season where they are the best conference in college football, 3 straight national championships. And we now have so many different coaches and programs of interest. This is no longer the old Big Ten media days where it was, here's Ohio State this day and Michigan this day, and try and find something to listen to in between. We got a lot of options, a lot of guys we're going to talk to. It's going to be real fun.
Yeah, really, really looking forward to that. That is a 3-day event now that they've expanded the conference to 18 teams. So going to be a lot to talk about. We will be there. We'll get there Monday evening in a couple weeks, and we will be there through Thursday evening. So it will be a busy, busy week in just a couple weeks. This would be a great time to sign up at BuckeyeInsiders.com because that will be just the start of what is going to be a really, really busy several months. Big Ten Media Days is generally the say goodbye to your wife and kids time, and we'll see you in, after the transfer portal, probably early February or so. We'll see you for Valentine's Day. How about that? So there's going to be a lot going on between now and then. We would love to see you at Buckeye Insiders to talk about all of that stuff. One of the things that we are talking about quite a bit on the Insiders board is recruiting, and the Buckeyes have a pretty solid 2027 class already coming together. Got some big commitment announcements coming in the next couple of weeks. Juck just wrote about the offense, grading the offensive class position by position, and the defensive class position by position. We're going to start with the defense. We're going to talk about that because, frankly, it feels like that class is a little more complete. There's a little more uncertainty on the offensive side of the ball. So, Juck, let's start with the edge position. And boy, Larry Johnson has had a bunch of really good classes. I don't know that I've ever seen Larry Johnson have an edge class quite like this.
Certainly not. Certainly not. With DJ Jacobs as the number 1 player in the country. It doesn't get better than number 1, right? Number 1 in the country. Then 5-star Marcus Facatuo and Wyatt Smith, who I think is going to close the class as a 5-star. The Rivals just did their rankings update. He's now up to 51 in the country, so less than 20 spots away from 5-star status, and we're looking at 3 5-star edges. Now, the caveat there is Wyatt Smith and Marcus Facatuo, one of those guys may potentially swing inside, so are they really 3 legit edges? They'll start there, but it just doesn't get any better than this. And when we look at DJ Jacobs, he's kind of the guy that Buckeye fans have been waiting for a long time, through a lot of different misses on that number 1 target on the board. Finally, you got him this year. Here he is.
Yeah, it feels like this is the year where, for years and years, they've had good classes where they've been really thrilled with, say, the wide receiver position. They've loaded up at wide receiver, and the class ranks as the number 3 class in the country, and everyone goes, yeah, but they missed at these spots, especially on the defensive line. This year, there have not been a lot of misses on the defensive line. There have been a lot of hits there. One spot that they have not had a hit yet is the defensive tackle position. However, there could be some good news coming there for the Buckeyes. That is one of the announcements that is coming in the next couple of weeks.
July 18th, Karlos May will announce. Karlos May out of Alabama at 6'2", 330 pounds, a heck of an athlete, a kid who's really, really strong, shot putter who puts up great numbers, but also has run track, a 300-plus pounder running track, and looking really athletic out there doing it. But a guy who's just a big space eater, and if you're trying to do a comp for a Caden McDonald in this class of 2027, this is the guy. And he is, he was the number 2-3 guy on the board for the Buckeyes at defensive tackle. And he'll announce July 18th, I think he's going to be a Buckeye. If he is, because we know that the big pitch to Karlos, and he told me this was the big pitch to him, is you're the guy. You're the guy we want, and it's just going to be one. So if that's the case, if they only went into the class looking for one defensive tackle and they pull out of here with one guy, and it's Karlos May, I'm going to say that's an A-. Obviously an A+ at edge. That would be an A- at defensive tackle, even though you're just getting one, because that's all you wanted.
And so it feels like on the whole, you grade that defensive line class. If you get May, you keep those edge guys. I mean, that's an A to me. You combine those two for sure.
Yeah, we're looking at 4 top 100 prospects. It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, that is a very, very, very solid class there for Larry Johnson. Again, assuming you close as we are sort of expecting them to, and yes, the Karlos May decision coming in just 4 days. So then beyond that, got to talk about linebackers, and got a couple names there. I know you will look at the recruiting rankings, and Prince Goldsby is listed as an edge. When he was there for the spring game, he was spending a whole heck of a lot of quality time with James Laurinaitis, so that is certainly where you would sort of expect him to play for Ohio State. But what are they looking at the linebacker position this year?
So Prince Goldsby out of Kansas City in the mold of Braxton Rembert from last year's class. Braxton Rembert out of Georgia and a much lesser known prospect. At the time, James Laurinaitis got in on him, but 6'5", 200 pounds. And then Goldsby, similar stature, about 6'4", 200 pounds. And these guys are just that long, fast, athletic body type that can play edge. But now we're going to see James Laurinaitis kind of try to turn them into the new age Arvell Reese, right? Take these guys that are great athletes, that are really long, kind of basketball bodies, but aggressive on the football field, and Prince really is. And he's got a lot of skills. Let's see if we can bulk him up to 230 pounds and see what you get there. Prince, very instinctive, sideline to sideline speed. Obviously, he's a top 100 player, so he's a well-respected player. But I'm equally as excited for Quentin Cypher out of North Carolina, who is now, I think, rated like top 230 in the country. So 4-star, 230-ish in the country. But this is a guy that the two best linebacker coaches in the country, and Glenn Schumann from Georgia and James Laurinaitis from Ohio State, were going after as like their top guy. I mean, they were all in on this kid. And if those two guys were all in on this kid, who is also a tremendous athlete at 6'2", about 215, he could play in the middle. He could play on the edge, sideline to sideline, ball hawk. He's even played offense. I am all in on this dude. He's going to be a high-level Ohio State starter at some point. I'm pretty certain of that.
So mentioned earlier that a lot of times the class has had a lot of, yeah, they're great, but, and a lot of cases recently it has been but offensive line or but defensive line. This year, it feels like there's a little bit of a but with the cornerback position, and especially the in-state recruiting at the cornerback position, where there have been some names that have been relatively highly ranked in state that they have not been able to bring in, but they've still ended up with a pretty solid class there.
The thing when we look at the cornerback position is to get the defensive line haul, you're going to have to find other places on the roster to potentially go the less expensive route to make sure you got the money to do that. And that's understandable. You have to do that from time to time. And what you're able to do in that class at cornerback is you don't get top 100 Montana Torbert or Ace Alston or Sebastian Telfair. All those guys go elsewhere from the state of Ohio. But you do get Deontay Malone, who is a 4-star, top 250-ish in the country, out of Massillon. And at 5'11", 180 pounds, I've watched this kid play a lot of football at Massillon. I'm out of Northeast Ohio. And he is a dynamo. He's on my freaks list as far as athletics. The fast twitch, jumps out of the gym, sub 4'4" guy, I think, and he plays everywhere, all over the field for Massillon. I think he'll settle in to be a real nice addition. He kind of reminds me of IGB, just a little bit shorter, long arms. And if this is what like the budget guy looks like, I am very happy with the budget guy.
And it feels like this is a little bit of a conversation about the budget is kind of part of the conversation, because obviously defensive line was sort of a priority this year, and you have seen the results with that. We've talked about the wide receivers maybe not having quite the budget they have in previous years. With the way they loaded up at corner last year between Jay Timmons, Jordan Thomas, bringing in Dominic Kelly in the portal, this feels like, okay, you can maybe shift some resources away from corner. And if you just have a good class at corner this year after having a great class at corner last year, and also they may not be done at corner, they're expecting probably another player there, that may not be a bad outcome. And there's probably a little more still to come at safety as well, where they've got one really, really solid, really good prospect, one very familiar name, and then potentially a little bit more to come later.
Eli Johnson at safety keeps dropping in the rankings, just updated rankings. He's dropped a little bit further outside the top 50-ish. And this is a 6'3", 210-pound safety who came up to Ohio State camp last year and won over Matt Guerrieri as, all right, this is my guy. And we've seen Matt Guerrieri hit on his top target every year since he's been at Ohio State. Eli Johnson was that guy for him. He's dropping in the rankings because he only played 8 games last year due to injury. There's not a ton of film on him. In addition to that, he's not a guy who's been out on the camp circuit because he's been locked into Ohio State. So there's no reason for him to be on anybody's mind to bump him up in the rankings. Therefore, naturally that happens. This guy is a total dude. I mean, he's a total dude, and the fact that Matt values him that much tells us all we need to know with that. So I feel very confident that we got a tier 1 safety in the class with him. Then you pair him with Angelo Smith, who obviously is Jeremiah's brother. And it is a long shot, right? Something needs to happen here. And we don't usually see Ohio State offer someone where a physical transformation needs to happen. He needs to grow a little bit, or he's not going to see the field at Ohio State, in my opinion. There's just too many great options, and that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Who's to say that doesn't happen? We saw Jeremiah grow up until he was 19 and a half, 20 years old, and Angelo's young for the class. What he is a damn good football player. Instinctive, crazy hard hitter for a kid his size. He's fearless. So those two guys together, you like it. You'd like to see one more who there doesn't need to be if this happens, maybe he can play.
So that's where the class stands right now. Obviously, there's still plenty of time for the class to change and to potentially have some additions between now and signing day in December. So where is there more work to do, or where is there maybe some potential additions coming to this class before signing day?
We did skip one I wanted to mention. Jaden Carey, the other cornerback in the class out of St. Thomas Aquinas, 3-star guy out of Aquinas, who has been pretty underrated, 5'10", 5'11", 180 pounds. And this is a guy who really reminds me of Peyton Pierce in the way that he's such a heady football player, even though he's not going to come in as fast as Deontay Malone. He just feels like the type of guy who's going to be a tick faster because he's just so smart and he learns everything and he picks up on everything. And like James Laurinaitis talks about Peyton Pierce, talks about himself being a tick faster because he knows what's coming. Jaden Carey reminds me of that guy, and he's going to be an inside guy, and I think that'll suit him really well. Also, great closing speed and a real ball hawk. But I do think after the first 3 weeks of the senior season, we're probably going to see a couple new offers go out, maybe at cornerback, certainly at safety, and really I think that's about it. When we look at the linebacker room, bringing in these two guys, looking at next year's roster, taking into account maybe 1-2 transfer, you're still at about 9-10 linebackers, so I don't think there needs to be another one. You would have taken Kalen Bailey out of Glenville because that's a really strong prospect in your backyard, but he ends up going to Colorado, and I think this probably wraps it up at linebacker.
All right, so there you go. So that's where things stand right now on the defensive side of the ball for the Buckeyes. Very solid class on the whole. Potentially a couple more additions still to come. You want to read about the where things stand on the offensive side of the ball. Well, there's probably some decisions coming there as well that will impact those grades, but Juck has that article on the front page of BuckeyeInsiders.com. That is a free piece, so you can go there, check that out. You want to talk to him about it? Well, then you can sign up there at BuckeyeInsiders.com, become a subscriber, get access to our insiders board. That's where our whole team of insiders are talking about the team, talking about recruiting, talking about scheme, X's and O's, talking about basketball. We have basketball interviews coming up on Thursday. We'll have more basketball content for you coming up then. It is going to be a busy, busy week at BuckeyeInsiders.com, and this is one of the slow weeks. Just a couple weeks. Season basically starts, as I said, so exciting stuff right around the corner. We would love to have you join us there. at BuckeyeInsiders.com. And thanks again to our friends at Jeff Ruby's Columbus, the award-winning upscale steakhouse in downtown Columbus, named one of the top 50 steakhouses in America by Food Network. Just go to jeffruby.com/Columbus to check out the menu and make a reservation today. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.